Ladies and gentlemen, we have an extremely accomplished panel to talk about whether India's opposition, are we staring at a political vacuum? Well, I have so many things to say, but I have so many things to hear as well. I'd like to bring on the panel to the stage one by one. May I begin with Professor D.K. Giri, who's a professor of international politics, a very acclaimed author, journalist, and political analyst. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome D.K. Giri on stage. Please. It's fabulous to see Anand back again on day 3 with us. Anand Ranganathan, who's obtained his BSc degree in chemistry from St. Stephen's College, after which he left for Cambridge, and he has so many laurels and accolades to his credit. He published, his work is published in journals like the Journal of Biological Chemistry, Chemistry and Biology, Journal of Infectious Diseases, and of course, he's one of the most acclaimed public intellectuals that I have met. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Anand Ranganathan on stage. I'm delighted to say that I'm a fanboy of this man as I started reading up as a teenager his agony uncle columns in the Telegraph, and having watched a play at the India Habitat Center in Delhi, I became a fan of Suhel Seth, who's a founder and managing director of a consultancy firm called Councilage India, one of the brightest minds in the country today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Suhel Seth on stage. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure of having Shefali Vaidya back, who's an award-winning author, newspaper columnist, and social media influencer and very acclaimed public intellectual. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Shefali Vaidya back on stage. I'd like to welcome at this stage Syed Asim Waqar, who's a national spokesperson of MIM. On stage, ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Syed Asim Waqar on stage. We have with us Abhishek Sudhir, who's a Lucknow-based advocate and political analyst. He's a British-trained barrister at law with a keen interest in the politics of Uttar Pradesh. We also had Abhishek yesterday at Arth. Thank you, Abhishek, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, this session would be moderated by somebody who's an acclaimed advocate and an amazing public speaker, Nikhil Mehra. Ladies and gentlemen, welcoming Nikhil Mehra on stage. On that note, I leave you on with a couple of bright minds talking about a very, very important point today in the country's political climate. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome, all of you. Should we dive right in then? Professor Giri, can I come to you first? I would just like your basic view on the way the question is framed, which is, are we staring at a political vacuum?
Thank you. It's very interesting and provocative topic, but it's a red herring. I don't think opposition will wither at any time in Indian democracy. Such red herrings have been heard before, and this is not going to happen. There will be no political vacuum, because the biggest opposition in any, or the political constituency are the people. As long as people are there, the conscious citizens, which Indians are, the democracy will survive and thrive with treasury as well as opposition.
Thank you. Anand, do you want to have a crack at that same question?
Yeah, I don't think there is a political vacuum because, opposition vacuum, sorry, not a political vacuum, for the simple reason that the opposition to any government scheme or any government decision is so political nowadays, and it's so cynical that the real role of the opposition is being played by the voters. So, and I will expand on that, I think, as we move along. I don't know how many minutes to have as an opening remark. 1 minute or something? Yeah. So if we look at...
Anand, you're famous for your 30 seconds.
No, but, if we look at from 2019 onwards, of course, COVID has intervened, so we've lost 2 years, but you look at the 3 greatest decisions that this government has made. Article 370 abrogation.
I'm going to stall you on that because that's something I do want to raise in greater detail.
Yeah.
But can I move to Mr. Seth?
I think there's a more fundamental issue here behind this question. Can democracies survive / thrive without an opposition? The answer is no. But then the opposition in any democracy also needs to be responsible and responsive. What has begun to happen is that no matter who or what the opposition is, it opposes for the sake of opposing. That is not opposition. That is obfuscation. So we need to recognize the difference between obfuscation and opposition. As Anand said, I don't think there is a lack of opposition. It's not as if there's no one in the Lok Sabha, no one in the Rajya Sabha, none of the states have, opposing parties. But the reality, Nikhil, is that in this entire thing, we are seeing a cerebral vacuum as far as the opposition is concerned. The real issues are not being able to be tabled by the opposition, whoever that opposition may be, which is why the BJP has the run it does.
Well, you started by saying that in the absence of an opposition, democracy is not a thriving democracy, but ended by saying that India does have an opposition. So at least we're a thriving democracy.
Yeah, but as I said, you can be, it's operation successful, patient dead.
Shefali?
I would like to turn this question to the focus that we are looking at. Obviously, there will be opposition from the voters if they are dissatisfied with the government, any government. Obviously, there is opposition in the media, in any other circles. But we are talking here specifically about political opposition, and we are talking about opposition as a single national kind of a party, and that I don't see in India right now.
Shefali, you can define it differently as well.
No, I'm saying my definition. You asked me, this is my take, right? This is obviously my take. I'm saying that right now you have a lot of regional satraps. There's somebody sitting in Tamil Nadu, somebody sitting in West Bengal, somebody sitting somewhere else. But there is no one single national party which has a nationwide presence which can counter the current ruling party. So in that sense, yes, there is a political vacuum because the current national political party has less than 10% of seats in the Lok Sabha. That tells you the situation that there is. And the second largest, the biggest opposition political party is actually a regional political party which is in power in West Bengal. So yes, to answer your question, I think there is a dearth of single national political opposition in this country.
वकार साहब, सवाल तो यही है कि पॉलिटिकल ऑपोजिशन अब बची है कि नहीं बची है?
सर, सवाल बहुत अच्छा है और जब तक लोकतंत्र रहेगा तब तक अपोजिशन मर नहीं सकता। जिस दिन लोकतंत्र खत्म हो जाए और राजतंत्र शुरू हो जाए तो समझ जाइएगा कि अब अपोजिशन की जरूरत नहीं है। जो राजशाही होती है उसमें अपोजिशन नहीं होता है और लोकतंत्र जहां भी होगा वहां अपोजिशन होगा और बिना अपोजिशन के जनता के मुद्दे नहीं उठाए जा सकते। मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि आज जो लोकतंत्र है इसमें कहीं ना कहीं लोकतंत्र धीरे धीरे राजशाही की तरफ खुद को तब्दील करने की तरफ जा रहा है और जो अपोजिशन है वो पूरी ताकत से लोकतंत्र को बचाए रखने के लिए उस राजशाही की तरफ बढ़ते कदमों को रोक रहा है। और ये अच्छी बात है कि हमारा अपोजिशन पहले भी मजबूत था, आज भी मजबूत है, क्योंकि अपोजिशन के जो नेता हैं वो जब मजबूत होते हैं तो एक मजबूत और पायदार और ताकतवर अपोजिशन उभरता है। और अपोजिशन का मतलब सीधा सीधा सा ये होता है कि जब अपोजिशन खड़ा होता है ताकत के साथ तो जनता के मुद्दे गूढ़ नहीं होते हैं, जनता के मुद्दों से कोई इनकार नहीं कर सकता है और सरकार को मजबूर कर दिया जाता है। अभी आपके सामने इतना बड़ा किसान आंदोलन, अगर लोकतंत्र ना होता या अपोजिशन ना होता तो जो हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी हैं वो कभी इस मुद्दे को वापस ना करते, इस बिल को वापस ना करते। ये बिल लोकतंत्र की जीत है और विपक्ष की जीत है।
Please, Abhishek.
Yeah, just to build on what Waqar Saab said, we have just witnessed the largest mass agitation in the history of independent India, just a few kilometers from where we're sitting at the Singhu border. So democracy in India is strong, it's vibrant, it's thriving. After March 10th, we'll have to have debates on, is there a governance vacuum in India? And I think right now the question is, if not Modi, who? I think after March 10th, the question might be, after Modi, who? So I think democracy is strong. I just want to just say one more thing, which is I think today there is a lack of engagement between the two sides. I think we need to stop this whole liberal this and, you know, snowflake and Sangi and right this and that. I'm happy here. I'm really excited for this session. This is democracy in action. Arth is this democracy in action. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
You raised, आपने भी ये एक मुद्दा उठाया, and you also raised this issue that जो opposition थी गवर्नमेंट की लेजिस्लेटिव पॉलिसीज के अगेंस्ट वो सड़कों पे उतरी है और वहां पे रोकी गई है. I think Suhel had a point he wanted to make on this, so I'm going to go to Suhel first, and then I understand this is a question everybody wants to address. We'll go down the line.
You know, the BJP, for all its winning strategies, is unarguably the worst communicator. They could have easily, and they should have. I don't think the Prime Minister, by repealing the laws, has been submissive or has, you know, failed and been defeated. In a sense, it is a victory for democracy. And he has adhered to hearing the voices of the people. Now, you might say it's too little, too late. Having said that, I think the question here, let's be specific. We are not talking about the fact that whether we have a weak democracy or we don't have a weak democracy. The question is very pointed. Are we staring at a political vacuum? You know, Shefali mentioned that there are various pillars of a society which can create. The 4 judges, you would have said they were in opposition, in a manner of speaking. So I think the question that, you know, the barrister Sudhir also talked about is, are we staring at a political vacuum? The answer is yes, to my mind, because we don't have the wherewithal, and perhaps, yes, after March 10th, things may change, and we all hope they do.
Right.
But as of now, if you see the two parties, and yes, there's too much of bad blood. There's no engagement.
Yeah, if I could just build on that.
Please.
The key word today in India is consensus. There is a lack of consensus. If the Prime Minister had built consensus on the farm laws, I think the opposition would have supported him. Today, you want to feel
Sorry,
heard.
Abhishek, what did the Prime Minister need to do to build consensus on a set of laws on
Yes.
which there has been consensus for 30 years?
You're a lawyer, right? When I was 26 years old, I wrote to a standing committee of parliament on the National Judicial Appointments Commission bill. They invited me and said, come present your views. I went before Ramvilas Paswan, some very eminent people. My views were heard. This government just does not send bills to
sorry,
standing
Abhishek,
committees.
again, I want to be very...
A standing committee is a pillar of democracy.
So, I'm sorry, this would have been the nth standing committee on the same issue. The point is...
Nth is democracy,
well,
actually.
so the point is this, there comes a stage at which
Right.
the Prime Minister examines the economic model of the nation and says, I must push this legislative agenda through.
Yeah.
There's a point that Suhel made initially, I'm going to come to you, Anand, don't worry,
Yeah.
where he said that sometimes it's obfuscation and not opposition. Was it really a principled opposition on the farm laws?
I'll tell you what happened. Unfortunately, we never got to that discussion on the farm laws because you're called Khalistanis, you're called terrorists, you're called dangais. So you're made to feel like if you oppose Narendra Modi, if you oppose the BJP, you're a traitor, you're a deshtrohi, you're a tukde guy. So it becomes about defeating Narendra Modi rather than opposition to the laws.
But then if you have an opposition, you can be called an Adani man? I mean, what logic is that?
No.
Was there a debate on parliament? You saw how they passed the laws. They did not follow the procedure. They followed it by a voice vote. You did not have a division on the largest, most significant agricultural reform in Indian history. You did not have a division of votes. You can't say anything. That's democracy. You're a lawyer. I'm a constitutional lawyer. Procedure is the handmaiden of justice. The ends can never justify the means.
Yeah, well, handmaidens get set aside from time to time. I know, Anand, you wanted to jump in on this from the start.
No, I mean, especially because Sudhir mentioned farm laws and he said that democracy is thriving. I disagree. I think democracy is possibly stagnant. Anarchy is thriving in our country. and Suhel was quite benevolent towards the Prime Minister when he said, I don't think it is Modi. So I think, was it Kejriwal who said once Modi is a coward and a psychopath? Well, Modi is not a psychopath. But judging by how he repealed the farm bills, I certainly, for one, believe that Modi is a coward. And I'll tell you why. Because what do you do in a country where, you project someone as the leader of opposition and is actually is opposition of leader? And every single step that the BJP has taken in the last, and I have about 10 or 12, a list of 10 or 12 things that were there in the opposition parties' manifestos. We are talking of farm bills. You look at number 11, number 19 under the agricultural thing in Congress manifesto 2019, they're all there. In fact, Modi did not go as far as the Congress wanted to. Congress wanted to completely do away with APMC. Modi gave them a choice. On the contract farming, Punjab already had contract farming. On the Essential Commodities Act, Congress wanted to do away with it. Now, what do you do when you bring these reforms that the opposition wanted, thinking, well, there'll be no opposition because these guys wanted it. And then a jolt comes because the opposition takes a U-turn and says, I'm sorry, we don't want it anymore. I can go on. I mean, the same thing happened with CAA. 2015 and 2012 CPIM and Congress resolution demanding that the minorities from Bangladesh, minorities cannot be Muslims in Bangladesh, right? Minorities from Bangladesh be given citizenship. Yeah. You again go on a U-turn. Same thing with Article 370. Congress nearly passed it in 1974. So the point of the matter is that the opposition is simply there for, as Suhel said, opposing Modi.
Nikhil, one point.
Now,
Abhishek,
10 seconds.
I wanted to put this question to you, Abhishek.
Yeah. Just want to say, Modi has...
It's exactly in this context.
Sure.
Which is, what do we do about consensus as you placed at the heart of this debate if opposition parties will flip their positions at convenience? So just the other day, just 2 days ago, Priyanka Gandhi in a rally in Uttar Pradesh said, PSUs are the most important vehicles of employment.
Yes, I
having
agree.
had a privatization agenda while in government, the privatization agenda was fostered first by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh.
Right.
So how do we deal with consensus if there is some opportunism involved?
Lots of questions, lots of points. I just want to take one by one. Number one, Modi as Gujarat Chief Minister opposed GST. That's just become the nature of Indian politics. It's when someone proposes, if you're in the opposition, you oppose. And when you're in the government and you propose, they oppose. So that's just become the nature of Indian politics. Now, coming to the PSUs, I'm a supporter of the Samajwadi Party. The Samajwadi Party is a party of socialism. I think what Akhilesh Yadav's ideology, I mean, I don't know him personally, but from reading the manifesto, he believes that the government can do a better job and run a PSU like you would run a private sector organization, because at the end of the day, yes, you're right, the hypocrisy of the Congress, Manmohan Singh is the father of globalization, liberalization, but the panelists are old here, we were probably broke, right? When that happened, we were bankrupt. I mean, that had to happen much earlier than it did. It was a sort of...
You're wrong. You're quoting incorrectly. The bankruptcy happened at the Chandrasekhar cusp.
Correct, yeah.
Manmohan Singh is considered to be the father of liberalization.
Right.
I just want to take one thing which you refer to.
But that's 91, though.
1 minute. It's an important point. It is not the business of government to be in business. PSUs were created at a time when private capital was not available in India, just post-independence.
Correct.
Okay. So I don't think Samajwadi Party has done some remarkable work in either sustaining or running PSUs other than the only PSU that they've run, which is the public Samajwadi University.
Okay, I mean, now we're getting...
I'm just saying.
I think that politics...
I don't belong to any party, but I'm just saying...
Then the political sadak chap in me will come out, so, and then you won't like that.
No, but
Sohail,
you won't like that side of me.
I'm saying...
That's not the barrister, so...
So I'm saying to extol the virtues, we are discussing a thematic issue.
Right.
You have brought in how Samajwadi Party has decided through the bend of socialism, they'll be able to run businesses better.
Right. Your job, you said it's not the job of the government to run businesses, right?
Jawaharlal Nehru says.
Right. Just hang on. There's one thing we have to address, the elephant in the room, and that is our social justice commitment. When you privatize Air India, you are depriving an SC, an ST, a Dalit youth from an opportunity of becoming a pilot.
You are depriving India of the opportunity to sustain more losses, Abhishek.
It's not a... Listen, let me tell you something, right? The Tatas got Air India at a steal. And I think everybody knows that. They got Air India at a steal.
1 minute. What you don't know, Sudhir, with due respect, you don't know what has happened with Air India and how much money you and I as taxpayers have spent sustaining this airline.
Right.
So let's not discuss airline.
It comes down to privatization versus a public sector approach. That's a different economic debate if you want to have it.
All
I'm
right,
ready to have
I
it.
think that deviates from the question.
Yeah.
So,
Nikhil,
एक second पहले शेफाली जी, और फिर उसके बाद वकार साहब.
Yes.
See, what I think we are losing in this whole debate is we can talk about policies till cows come home, so to speak, but we don't have a national opposition party. And what scares me is that in every place then, when the regional satraps campaign, it is for regional supremacy. So in West Bengal, you have somebody saying that Bohirgoto are not allowed. Then in Tamil Nadu, you'll have somebody who is saying that we don't want imposition of Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
but apparently
similarly,
it's a union of states, not a nation, right? So this is very
similarly,
important.
but we still have a federal systems. Like you cannot say that this person is a Bohirgoto, so they can't come. And the worst part is...
why not, Shefali?
The
Why
worst part is, let me complete please. The worst part is, the party that claims to be the national opposition party is also falling into this rut. And in Punjab, they are saying that we don't want any bhaiyas from UP and Bihar to come into Punjab. And the same person who claps for that sentence, next day goes to UP and talks about a powerful UP and saying that we need, UP to be powerful to make India powerful. Does no one see the hypocrisy here? That when you are empowering regional satraps at the cost of a national political party which has a national vision, then you will basically, okay, we've always had regional asmitas, we've already has regional identities, but now it's like regional identities are at war with each other, and that scares me as an Indian. That is why I want one national opposition party. Regional parties can come, regional parties have their own
No,
constituency,
but
they have to
Shefali,
be
can we
there.
actually choose that? The point is, it is a union of states, which is a nation as well. I just want to be clear about Article 1 of the Constitution.
It's a union of states,
No,
you know,
one
it's a union.
One moment, Shefali.
There's a reason why that word is there.
Sorry, one moment. If at that moment in time, for any moment, for example, we've hit this juncture now for over 7 years, 8 years, you don't have a national political party that can pass muster in terms of number of seats, number of votes that they've polled. Is there anything wrong in the opposition pretty much fragmenting their opposition strategy to you and beating you and fighting you state to state?
It's not about fighting state to state. It is about demonizing and othering other people and saying that in Bengal we will not allow outsiders, in Goa we will not allow, and the same party which basically says in Bengal we will not allow outsiders is now campaigning in Goa and sending outsiders in there and saying that, oh, we are there for you, so please vote for us.
So they can be
Are
called
they
out
not
on their hypocrisy.
Bohirgotos? So, but if we keep fighting and if we keep saying these are Antargoto, these are Bohirgoto, these are internal, these are external, then where is that union part? Where is that Indianness? That is what scares me as a common Indian citizen.
Okay. वकार साहब, आप कुछ कहना चाह रहे थे?
देखिए, जब लोकतंत्र में चुनाव होता है तो उसको लोग लड़ते हैं। सरकार और अपोजिशन के साथ साथ वो जनता भी मैदान में होती है जो वोटर होती है। मेरा अपना मानना यह है कि जब इलेक्शन करीब आने लगते हैं, पोलिंग डेट आती है करीब, तो दो तरह के कॉन्सेप्ट बनते हैं। एक वो लोग होते हैं जो सरकार को हटाना चाहते हैं और दूसरे वो लोग होते हैं जो सरकार को रिपीट करना चाहते हैं। तो लड़ाई उन लोगों के बीच में होती है कि सरकार को हटाने वाले और सरकार को रिपीट करने वाले। सरकार अपना पक्ष रखती है और अपोजिशन अपना पक्ष रखता है, लेकिन जैसे यहाँ है, यहाँ बहुत से लोग सरकार के पक्ष के हैं, बहुत से सरकार के खिलाफ के हैं। अब उनको अपोजिशन कहिए या अपने अपनी पार्टी का पक्ष रखने वाला कहिए, कुछ भी कह सकते हैं आप, लेकिन सच्चाई ये है कि हम लोग जिस मुल्क में रह रहे हैं वहाँ की ज़रूरतें अलग हैं। हम जहाँ रहते हैं यहाँ 85% आदमी गरीबी की रेखा के नीचे, 15% आदमी टैक्स देता है। उस 15% आदमी के टैक्स से 85% लोगों का भरण पोषण किया जाता है। हमारे यहाँ, मेरा अपना मानना यह है, मैं समझता हूँ आप सब काबिल लोग हैं, मुझसे ज़्यादा काबिल हैं, मुल्क तब तक तरक्की नहीं कर सकता जब तक उसके रहने वाले तरक्की नहीं करेंगे। जब तक हमारे यहाँ हम लोग जाहिल रहेंगे, हमारा मुल्क जाहिल रहेगा। हम वैज्ञानिक पैदा करेंगे, मुल्क वैज्ञानिकों का मुल्क कहलाएगा। हम कंप्यूटर इंजीनियर बनाएंगे, इंजीनियर्स का कहलाएगा। हमें ये सोचना है कि हम अगर अच्छे पोस्टों पर, अच्छे कुर्सियों बैठे हैं, तो हमारा ये फर्ज बनता है कि हम अपने मुल्क के बारे में बेहतर सोचें। जिस दिन हम अपने लिए सोचने लगेंगे, मुल्क और मुल्क के लोगों के लिए सोचना बंद कर देंगे तो तरक्की खत्म हो जाएगी, हम पीछे जाने लगेंगे। मेरा अपना मानना यह है, मैं आज एक मुद्दा उठा रहा हूं। हमारे मुल्क में हम कफन पे भी टैक्स देते हैं, हम अगर हंसते हैं, एंटरटेन करते हैं, उस पर भी टैक्स देते हैं, हम पानी पे टैक्स दे रहे हैं, हम सीवर पे टैक्स दे रहे हैं, हम सड़क पे चलने पे टैक्स दे रहे हैं, हम रोड अगर एक जिले से दूसरे जिले में जाते हैं अच्छी सड़क से तो उस पर टैक्स दे रहे हैं, हम एग्रीकल्चर में भी टैक्स दे रहे हैं। कोई चीज ऐसी नहीं जो हम टैक्स ना देते हों, लेकिन उसके बाद भी हमारे यहाँ एजुकेशन की कमी है। मेरा अपना सरकार से मैं कई बार मांग कर चुका हूं, जब तक कि आप डॉक्टर के पास जाते हैं, डॉक्टर जब बीमारी डायग्नोज कर लेता है तो बेहतर इलाज करता है, लेकिन अगर डॉक्टर बीमारी समझ ना पाए तो वो दवा नहीं दे सकता, फिर वो तुक्के मारता है, इनको ये दे दो, इनको ये दे दो। वही हाल हम लोगों का है। हमारी प्रॉब्लम सर क्या है, हमारे यहाँ आप कभी भी गौर कीजिए, जो हायर एजुकेशन है वो सरकार के पास है, और जो प्राइमरी एजुकेशन और मिडिल एजुकेशन है वो मैक्सिमम गवर्नमेंट्स के प्लान के तहत प्राइवेट चली गई। हमारे यहाँ क्या हो रहा है, हम आईएएस कोचिंग, आईपीएस कोचिंग जो हमारे लोग चला रहे हैं। मैंने एक सवाल खड़ा किया था, आप बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हो, लेकिन अगर आप आईपीएस की कोचिंग, पीएमटी कोचिंग, नीट की कोचिंग, इंजीनियरिंग कोचिंग चला रहे हो, आप पास बच्चा इंटर के बाद आएगा ना, 12th के बाद। हमारे यहाँ 12th कर ही नहीं पा रहा है, हाई स्कूल में आके गिरे पड़ रहा है। तो हमको तो पहले तो वो एजुकेशन देखना है जो प्राइमरी और मिडिल हो। उनकी बात समझ में आई। हमारे यहाँ मैं सरकार से कह रहा हूं, हम इतने टैक्सेस ले रहे हैं, पेट्रोल तिगना चुगना कर दिया हम लोगों ने, डीजल पे है, गैस पे है, एजुकेशन, जस्टिस और हेल्थ, ये 3 चीजें पब्लिक का अधिकार है। और सरकार जो भी है, चाहे वो मोदी जी हों, चाहे वो जवाहरलाल नेहरू थे, इंदिरा जी हों, चाहे मुलायम सिंह जी हों, चाहे असद ओवैसी साहब हो, मैं खुद हूं, किसी का नाम ले लिए, हम कभी अपनी जेब से नहीं दे रहे हैं, ना हम घर से लाते हैं, हम इसी मुल्क से वसूलते हैं, इसी मुल्क से कमाते हैं और यही लगाते हैं। एजुकेशन हर बच्चे का अधिकार है। एजुकेशन हमारे यहाँ, मैं फ्री नहीं कहूंगा, मुफ्त नहीं है, ये अधिकार है हमारा, हमारे बच्चों का अधिकार है। मेडिकल हमारे बच्चों का, हमारे लोगों का अधिकार है। फ्री मैं इसलिए नहीं कह रहा हूं कि मुझे लगता है मुफ्त नहीं होना चाहिए, लेकिन अगर हम अपने मुल्क में एजुकेशन भी ना दे पाए, स्वास्थ्य भी ना दे पाए, तो मैं समझता हूं ऐसी सरकार नाकारा है।
Shukriya Waqar Sahab. Professor Giri, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to change the focus. We've dealt with the legislative agenda and how it's been opposed throughout. I'm going to put some statistics to you. The BJP, traditionally from 1990 downwards, all the way to the 2009 election, was a party that generally had about 18 to 20% vote share nationally. That jumped in one go in 2014 to 31%, and then saw a substantial jump again of 7% in 2019. These are the numbers that we look at when we say this is the possibility of political vacuum on the opposition side, because as Shefali points out, there is a great degree of regionalism. So there is, the national party's vote share gets cut amongst regional parties. So how do we, A, is this a problem, or is this just the way democracy is working right now? And B, do you see any trends of this reversing?
Yeah, certainly. We go back in terms of facts a bit in history. You see, Shefali just said there is, the opposition does not have 10% of seats. For 54 years, we did not have an opposition party with 10% of seats. It's not new. So the point is, but democracy, you know, I would like to raise some, we are raising peripheral issues really. Yeah, but let me raise some fundamental philosophical issues about democracy. Democracy, as a student of politics, I would like to tell you, is the biggest political challenge across the world. When so-called father of political science, Aristotle, classified the governments, he had said democracy is a distorted form, not a desirable form. Yeah, but democracy now has become universal aspiration. Let me give you a very instructive quotation. You know, the comparison between democracy and capitalism. Somebody said, it is easy to practice capitalism, but difficult to explain it. Likewise, it is easy to explain democracy, but difficult to practice it. You see, so we misunderstand democracy, and you know, Shefali is talking of the opposition party. That is only one part of democracy. Democracy consists of individuals, institutions, and processes, and that processes include ruling party, opposition party, civil society, media, academia, everybody in the country. So, and let me tell you as a lawyer, whatever is legal is not democratic. You see, there is a difference between being legal and democratic. So if you have a majority, you are not necessarily becoming democratic. See, democracy is more ethical than legal. Now, I agree with Anand's first part, that there is a decline of democracy and there is a political vacuum. For that, all of us are responsible, really. So it is not just the opposition, it is the ruling party. Ruling party equally, they were in opposition before. What did they do? You see, and it is responsible to the ruling party to maintain democracy. And see, opposition is not only opposition is accountable to maintain democracy. So, and secondly, what has happened, Anand, my friend, I would like to say, the biggest, I have a lot of good things to say about BJP, but the biggest damage BJP has done to Indian democracy is to destroy the organizing principles of political parties. You see, look at the, they wanted Congress Mukt Bharat, but BJP is a Congress Jukt BJP now. How many people have joined Congress, BJP? Who is the chief minister in Assam?
Ideologically, it's a flexible
who is the
thing,
leader of opposition of BJP in Bengal, who is they fought so strongly? Somebody who defected 2 months before.
They won the Northeast on the Congress.
Absolutely, 2 months before. Hemant Biswa Sarma, a congressman all his life, is the chief minister. So what are you talking about? So the political party as an institution is destroyed. There's no political party.
But is that the BJP's fault, sir?
Politics. No, I mean, all of them, but BJP now as opposition, he has taken the, he has engineered more defections than anybody.
Well, when we say engineered, sir, is there not enough disappointment within the Congress party with its leadership?
Mr. Moderator, not only that, what happened in Karnataka and Madhya Pradesh,
Yes.
Breaking governments, that is another example. These are the dark days of democracy. These are the damage to democracy which we cannot recover. So we'll have to mention that, it is the process that we create. Okay? I stop here.
Anand?
Yeah, no, my good friend Professor Giri is absolutely right, except there is one, if I may be critical of you. According to him, everything was hunky-dory in India before 2014. Sari problems 2014 ke baad aani shuru hui. Now what he says is absolutely right about BJP. BJP is like a sponge. It is sucking up all the corruption from other parties, and those corrupt people are joining the corrupt people of BJP. But for you to say, Professor, that these things haven't happened before, other parties haven't done it, I mean, Shefali was the one who wrote a stinging. No, when you say these are dark days for the democracy, it's almost as if the clouds have descended and hanging low after 2014. I mean, we're talking about dark days. They have been there since, But I don't want to come to that because you are fundamentally, you're correct. So I agree with you. But if I may, the real nub of the issue was, no, please don't do that. The real nub of the issue was said by Waqar साहब. और मैं उस पे 2 मिनट लगाना चाहता हूँ क्योंकि उन्होंने really मुद्दे की बात करी. जो वो कह रहे हैं कि जब उन्होंने कहा कि देश जो है वो 85% लोग जितने भी जो पॉवर्टी है, पुअर हैं, उनके लिए है देश. और किसी लोग के लिए 15% के लिए नहीं है जो करते हैं. तो मैं आपसे एक बात कहना चाहूँगा वकार साहब. आपने बिल्कुल सही बात कही. एक मीम चलती है जिसमें वी आर ऑल गिल्टी, आई एम ऑल्सो गिल्टी. एक मीम है जिसमें एक एक्टर ऐसे फटे हुए चिथड़े कपड़ों में कह रहा मुझे सब आता है, मुझे सब आता है. देखी होगी आपने शायद मीम. उस पर लोग बहुत हंसते हैं. मैं भी अपने आप को उस पर मानता हूँ, लेकिन मेरे में कोई पावर नहीं है तो मैं कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकता कि मेरी बात ही लोग माने. लेकिन हमारा ये माहौल ऐसा बन गया है कि हर आदमी को लगता है कि मुझे सब आता है. अब जैसे अगर कोई मुझसे पूछे कि कश्मीर में एफ्सपा हटाना चाहिए, मेरा व्यू माने नहीं रखता. जो कि वहां जनरल है, जो कि वहां आर्मी है, उसका व्यू माने रखता है. अगर मैं आपसे कहूं वकार साहब आप मुझे कोरोना की वैक्सीन बना के दीजिए, आप कहें मैं तैयार हूं, नहीं, वो आप साइंटिस्ट पे छोड़ेंगे. कोई न्यूरो सर्जरी करना चाहता है वो आप डॉक्टर पे छोड़ेंगे. तो ऐसे जो इतने अहम मुद्दे हैं देश के, फार्म बिल को मैं इस पे इसीलिए कॉन्सेंट्रेट करना चाहता हूं क्योंकि आपने कहा ना जो पॉवर्टी लाइन वो है, ये 3 फार्म लॉज ऐसे थे जो कि हमारे देश को एक लीप फ्रॉग करते ऐसी जगह जहां पे हमारा जीडीपी डबल ट्रिपल हो जाता, जहां पे हमारे 44% ऑफ एक्टिव लेबर फोर्स 550 मिलियन पीपल आर इन्वॉल्व इन एग्रीकल्चर. वेस्ट में ओनली 2%, यहां पे 44%. 85% ऑफ ऑल इंडियन हाउस होल्ड्स आर इन्वॉल्व इन आर टेकिंग फ्रॉम एग्रीकल्चर. इतनी प्रॉब्लम्स हैं एग्रीकल्चर में. ये 3 फार्म लॉज एक्सपर्ट्स ने, स्वामीनाथन कमेटी, आपने कितना बोला, 16 साल से कमिटीज बनी है कि भाई ये होना. शुगर केन का लीजिए, यूपी में शुगर केन फार्मर्स का पूरा बोलबाला है, सरकार झुकती है शुगर केन फार्मर पे. आपको पता है शुगर केन टेक्स ओनली 9% ऑफ द कल्टिवेटेड एरिया बट 77% ऑफ द इरिगेशन वाटर. India is the world's second largest producer of sugarcane, 350 billion metric tons. kilograms, 315 billion kilograms are produced by India. What happened in the last 6 years? Sugar prices have halved. Environment का डैमेज देखिए, equivalent to 10 गंगा सागर डैम्स हम पानी देते हैं शुगर केन पे. ये सब चीजें हमें सोचनी नहीं चाहिए. पर इसमें एक्सपर्ट जब सोच के आपको कह चुके हैं तो फिर ऑपोजिशन पार्टीज अपना निकालने के लिए क्यों आ रहे हैं, उस पर क्यों एक्सपर्ट्स बन रहे हैं? ये मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं कि ऐसी बहुत सारी डिसीजंस है वकार साहब जो कि एक्सपर्ट्स ने ले रखी हैं. स्वामीनाथन कमेटी, MS स्वामीनाथन, आप रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं, हम जानते हैं वो एग्रीकल्चरिस्ट थे, ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन लाए, लेकिन ऑपोजिशन को उनकी बात सडनली नहीं सुननी है, हमारी बात सुननी है, अपना मैनिफेस्टो से यू टर्न ले लेना है. तो ऐसे केस में आप ही दुख नहीं पहुंचा रहे हैं पावर्टी लोगों को? ये मैं आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं.
सर मैं माफी चाहता हूं सुहेल भाई, आनंद भाई ने मेरा नाम लिया तो जवाब देना फर्ज हो गया. मैंने सिर्फ 85% की बात नहीं की थी, मैंने कहा था कि 15% से टैक्स लेकर 85 पर खर्च किया जाता है. मैं उन 15 को भी देख रहा हूं और 85 को भी देख रहा हूं. मैं मुसलमान हूं, लेकिन मैं जिस मुल्क में रहता हूं यहां मेजॉरिटी हमारे हिंदू भाइयों की है. तो आपके यहाँ रामायण भी है, आपके यहाँ महाभारत भी है, आपके यहाँ वेद भी है, आपके यहाँ गीता भी है. अगर ठीक से पढ़ी जाए तो मैं समझता हूं जिंदगी जीने का वो तरीका है जो शायद दुनिया में बहुत जगह नहीं मिल जाएगा हमको, आप क्या मिल जाएगा. एक टैक्स का जो तरीका होता है, आप क्या ही लिखा हुआ है कि किसी ने पूछा कि टैक्स कैसे लिया जाता है, टैक्स कैसे लेना चाहिए, तो उन्होंने कहा सूरज की तरह. तो कहा कैसे? कि कम दबाव वाले क्षेत्रों से सूरज की जो गर्मी होती है वो पानी को ले लेती है और बाद में वो भाप बन के चलती है और जहां ज्यादा दबाव होता है वहां बरसा देती है. आप समझिए बात को. टैक्स हमारा कैसा होना चाहिए, राजा कैसा होना चाहिए? सूरज की तरह, कि जहां पर कम दबाव है वहां से ले, पानी को ले ले, और जहां बहुत गुर्बत है, जहां जरूरत है वहां बरसा दे जाकर. ये होना चाहिए टैक्स का सिस्टम सर. और हम आप कर क्या रहे हैं? हम आप सिर्फ ले रहे हैं और लेने के बाद बरसा कहां रहे हैं? हमने लिया किससे? सर पेट्रोल भरा रहा है टैक्सी वाला, ऑटो वाला, हम उससे 35 रुपए का पेट्रोल उसको 100 रुपए का बेच रहे हैं, उससे 65 रुपए ले रहे हैं, बरसा रहे हैं अंबानी जी पर, अडानी जी पर. सर समझिए मेरी बात को, समझिए जो मैं कह रहा हूं. ये देखिए तकलीफ है. जितना भारत आपका है उतना ही भारत मेरा है. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं यहां पर कुछ ज्यादा ले रहा हूं, आप कम ले रहे हैं, या ऐसा भी नहीं कि आप सब लिए ले रहे हैं, मुझे कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है. मैं भी उन्हीं लोगों की बात कर रहा हूं जिनकी बात आप कर रहे हैं. वो फर्क इतना है कि आपके सोचने का तरीका अलग हो गया. आप सरकार की तरह सोच रहे हैं, मैं जनता की तरह सोच रहा हूं. जिस दिन आप जनता की तरह सोचने लगेंगे, उस दिन फिर शिकायत खत्म हो जाएगी. सर
मैं कुछ बोल सकती हूँ इसमें?
शेफाली,
इन्होंने जो शुरुआत में जो कहा था कि सबसे निचले वाले तबके को या किसी को भी बेसिक जो नीड्स हैं, जैसे एजुकेशन हो, हेल्थ हो, बेसिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर हो, उसको मिलना ही चाहिए, और मैं सहमत हूँ. और अगर हम थोड़ा सा पीछे जाएं और सोचें कि 2014 में तो लैंडस्लाइड हुआ था मोदी जी का, वो तो इसलिए हुआ था कि कांग्रेस के अगेंस्ट करप्शन के आरोप थे, बहुत कुछ हुआ था, लेकिन 5 साल के टर्म के बाद भी 2019 में मोदी जी को इतनी थंपिंग मेजॉरिटी क्यों मिली थी? इसलिए नहीं मिली थी, तब तो उन्होंने 370 को हाथ नहीं लगाया था, तब तो उन्होंने राम मंदिर नहीं किया था. तो क्यों जनता ने भर भर के उनको पूरे भारत में इतने वोट्स दिए? इसलिए वोट्स दिए कि ये जो बात कह रहे हैं कि लास्ट माइल डिलीवरी, उस पर कॉन्सेंट्रेट किया था पहले 5 साल में, इसीलिए जनधन योजना आई, इसीलिए शौचालय आया, इसीलिए डायरेक्ट ट्रांसफर आया, और उस सब का असर पड़ा. अल्टीमेट अथॉरिटी किसी भी डेमोक्रेसी में, चाहे वो कितनी भी फ्लॉड क्यों ना हो, वो जनता होती है, और वो जनता जो है वो बहुत सोच समझ के अपना फैसला देती है भारत में. ये हमने देखा है, इमरजेंसी के बाद भी हमने देखा है, उसके बाद भी हमने देखा है कि जब इंडिया शाइनिंग का बड़ा दौर चल रहा था 2004 में, तब भी जनता ने अपनी राय बहुत क्लियरली बोल दी थी कि देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन व्हाट इज बीइंग पोर्ट्रेट और हमारे साथ क्या हो रहा है. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि जनता को दिखता नहीं है, जनता को दिखता है, इसीलिए जनता इज द बेस्ट आर्बिट्रेटर.
So do you feel that the BJP as an institution learnt its lesson?
I definitely did, and I think for the first 5 years when Modi ji focused on the last mile delivery, it was done with a purpose, and that is why Janta got him back. But my point is a bigger point. I am talking about कि national opposition ना होने से, अगर आप थोड़ा सा पीछे जाएं भारत के, ज़्यादा टाइम नहीं लूँगी, just give me 2 minutes, till about 1990s, The political spectrum, as Professor Giri said, was like there was one Congress and there was everybody who was anti-Congress. So उसमें left भी था, non-left भी था, सारे इकट्ठे थे. तो Congress center में था, बाकी के opposition में थे. Now that situation has flipped on its head. Now it is BJP center में और बाकी सारे opposition में हैं और बाकी सारे मतलब एक यहाँ है, एक यहाँ है, एक यहाँ है और कांग्रेस जो अपने आप को नेशनल पॉलिटिकल पार्टी बोलती है आज भी, लेकिन उनका प्रेजेंस है कहाँ? आज की तारीख में अगर आप देखें तो उनका पूरा मेजॉरिटी के साथ गवर्नमेंट छत्तीसगढ़ में है और पंजाब में है और पंजाब में भी शायद 10 मार्च के बाद ना हो, पता नहीं. बट राजस्थान में उनके साथ और भी पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज हैं, झारखंड में भी उनके साथ और पॉलिटिकल पार्टीज पावर में हैं, पुदुचेरी में वो थे, वहां से सत्ता चली गई. दैट इज नॉट द पॉइंट. द पॉइंट इज वेयर इज द नेशनल ऑपोजिशन विच इज लाइक अ काउंटर. एंड आई ऑनेस्टली बिलीव एज अ सिटीजन ऑफ अ डेमोक्रेटिक इंडिया दैट वी नीड दैट रोबस्ट नेशनल ऑपोजिशन. सो जो बात की थी ना कांग्रेस मुक्त भारत नहीं होना चाहिए हमें कांग्रेस जैसी पार्टी, लेकिन गांधी मुक्त कांग्रेस होनी चाहिए, तभी वो एक सशक्त पॉलिटिकल नेशनल पार्टी हो सकती है.
Abhishek, I'm going to go to Suhel first, then I have a very pointed question for you.
I also want to just rebut what she just said. Could I just take
Sure.
2 minutes?
Can we go with
Okay,
Suhel
sure,
first, then you, and then I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
Yeah, so
You
shall
go
I?
first. You
Okay.
go first.
So now give me about 30 minutes. No, I'm just joking. I think
You
after
can see the timer take.
yeah. After hearing all of this, I want to just place a tangential point of view. In the good old days, and I don't know why it's happened, I'm not the doctor or the diagnostic person, there were certain holy cows on which there was political unanimity. What I'm seeing today is the depravity and the degradation of those holy cows. And no pun intended. The army, business people, non-business people, you didn't create enemies in order to shame a government. What one has seen, and I take Professor Giri's point on board about democracy and the essence of democracy, but democracy also doesn't give you the right to continue to castigate people because in your current avatar or your current dispensation, you don't agree. What have we done in pure terms? And let me be honest, because I know this happened. When Rahul Gandhi talked about Soot Boot Ki Sarkar, he pushed reforms by 2 years because this government was unwilling to take them head on. And Anand is right. The government smacked of cadres. It's the same thing that happened when Akhilesh and Mulayam were in power. People would take pot shots because they were hanging around with whoever, they wanted investment. Now the same Mamata Banerjee today is very keen to get Adani, but when the communists were in power, she threw out Nano. The hypocrisy which Shefali talks about today is actually damaging the fabric of India. It is damaging our democracy, and as a marketing person, I can tell you, it is damaging our brand. And now let me make one last point, Nikhil. Yes, India has the same problems, or more problems perhaps, than other democracies. But that doesn't call for fake narratives where you shame your country in order that you be picked up by certain sections of the Western media. Because please remember, when people are reading the news of one particular, or which is angularized or angled, people are worried about the state of the nation. Now, the reality also is, and this, the BJP is responsible, other parties are responsible. You've defined media across lines. Godi media, prostitutes, ye, wo. So today, and I say this with all humility, I hate all political parties. Hate them. I have zero anger. But the day you say something nice about Modi, they'll say you've become a bhakt. Or you say something nice about Rahul Gandhi. My only view is, Shefali mentioned, and if I can extrapolate what she said, she talked about a national party. We also need, with her permission, if I can extrapolate, we also need a national unison on causes that are above petty political partisan lines. Otherwise, we will not only damage our democracy, we will damage India, we will damage our civilizational legacy, we will damage everything. This polarization is going to be very destructive in the long term. Today, you have children, Nikhil. Earlier, I was born and raised in Calcutta. We never talked about Muslims and Christians and Parsis. It was a cauldron. It was a melting pot. Today, you're creating polarization of the worst kind. and then only to blame a Modi or only to blame. Because the same guy who opposed temples, every election, pre-election, does a temple run. So I'm talking about the hypocrisy which will damage the fabric of India. That we need to worry about.
Abhishek, just taking off from what he said, is it possible that this hypocrisy, as Suhel describes it, is because we still haven't actually, 75 years later, arrived at an understanding of whether socialism is a goal or what socialism constitutes, what our secularism actually means, and what social justice will eventually mean, and what route it has to take?
Right. I really want to answer this question. Can I take 30 seconds to just rebut what
Please,
Shefali said?
you can rebut within the question.
So Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was the Bharatiya Janata Party. The BJP was a small minor player with 2 members of parliament, right? Nobody really respected the BJP. The Jan Sangh was an inconvenient ally for many people, especially in 1977, because they were all like fascist, 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 then you ally with the Jan Sangh. So hypocrisy has been part of our political culture. So I'm going to ask a very provocative, rhetorical question. Is the Bharatiya Janata Party a national party? Dr. Sampath is here. He's a fellow Bangalorean and he comes from the south. In Karnataka, they are in power. But in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, they're not going to form the government anytime soon. They're out of power in Maharashtra. They were out of power in Madhya Pradesh. They are not in power in Chhattisgarh. They are not in power in Rajasthan. That's the heartland. We're talking about the Hindi heartland. In Bihar, they are in a very uneasy alliance with Nitish Kumar. In Bengal, we know what Didi did, right? Uttar Pradesh, March 10th, everything will become clear, right? Gujarat, wow, that was close last time, but Narendra Modi pulled it off, right? He appealed to Gujarati pride. Himachal Pradesh, lot of anti-incumbency. You lost the bipole very recently. You can't polarize there. Apples are the issue, right? So, is the BJP a national party? I don't think so. There's a lot of, let me tell you, let me just speak.
You've got to define a national party if you're going to.
We have to define a national. A national party is a party that's formed a government in every state. That could be one definition. BJP has never formed a government.
Then, other than the Congress, no one's a national party.
No, exactly. So the BJP has to still, and that's what Amit Shah is doing. What I admire about the BJP is the election machine. Amit Shah knows they're going to get routed in Tamil Nadu, but Amit Shah will keep going to Tamil Nadu. Narendra Modi will keep going to Tamil Nadu. You think Bengal was a loss for them? I was concerned with 80 seats. I was concerned with 80 seats. I was very concerned. They went from 2 or 3 seats to 80 seats. Hey, right? Look, national parties, narratives, the opposition is not built in a day. I believe in Akhilesh. I believe one day he will be the Prime Minister of this nation. You can laugh. But if you had told somebody in 1977 that the BJP and Atal Bihari Vajpayee would be Prime Minister, people would have been shocked. So let's not get too smug. The people will decide whether there's a vacuum or not. The people will decide. Social justice. This is an issue that's really close to my heart. We have to talk about reservation. We just have to. Because I'll tell you, I live in Lucknow. I've lived in Sonipat, Haryana. I have somebody, I'm privileged, I'm upper class. When you go to the north, you realize when you move from the south to the north, that only certain castes will clean your bathroom. That you will have a cook who's from a different caste, but that person who cooks or cleans your house will not clean the bathroom. And the person who cleans the bathroom is usually a Valmiki, from the Valmiki community. To those people, they are not interested in our culture wars. What we're trying to replicate is the Fox News model of culture wars in the US. I watch Sean Hannity, Bill O'Reilly. I have watched Greta Van Susteren day in and day out. We are trying to replicate the culture wars model. We have never had culture wars. I agree with Suhel Seth. Suhel Seth to me is the Don Draper of India. Suhel Seth to me is aspirational. But you know, Suhel, to get to where you are, for a Valmiki who's cleaning a bathroom today, he needs reservation to lift him up. He needs that help. Baba Sahib Ambedkar said 10 years we'll be equal. Unfortunately, he was proved wrong. 10 years is not enough. 75 is not enough. We are talking about 5,000 years of systemic discrimination that cannot be overcome with 75 years of affirmative action.
But is that issue really on the table? Legislatively, it hasn't been.
It is hugely on the table in Uttar Pradesh, my friend.
Who is saying it is going away?
What reservation? Going away. When you privatize, there is no reservation in the private sector.
That's expansion of the pie. I'm sorry.
But my friend, you're saying it's expansion of the pie.
Are you moving towards?
But does everyone have a knife and fork to eat the pie?
Are you suggesting?
Does everybody have a knife and fork to eat the pie?
Since he mentioned Air India and the Tata, I just want to make a brief point.
Yeah.
I totally agree about the marginalization. Yeah. I have one request, one comment, one question. Sure. Would you, if you're ill, God forbid, and you have to go to the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, do you want the best doctor or do you want someone who's there because of a quota? Yeah. A, B, the Air India question is very specific. Please remember, as per the agreement that has been signed with the government, A, there's going to be no retrenchment for the next 12 months. Yeah. Plus, please understand, these are certain areas of engineering excellence in which people from all communities are represented.
Yeah.
Trust me, it is a myth to believe that private sector does not worry about the marginalized sections. Today there's an article in the newspapers which talks about how Tata Steel is now reskilling and skilling transgenders to look at shop floor work. So I'm saying, while I agree with your premise, please don't throw the baby with the bathwater, because if you castigate the private sector, the government will give you jobs, but they won't give you livelihood and careers. You've got to understand, as you rightly said about aspiration, I just don't want a job.
Yeah, can I respond to you? First thing, he said about a doctor. After the second wave, bro, I would take any doctor. As long as I got a doctor and as long as I got a hospital bed, I would take any doctor. That showed, today, if you have reservation, that tribal from Bastar will become a doctor and he will go and be a doctor in Bastar. The upper caste doctor is not going to move to a remote area and become a doctor.
Again, Abhishek.
Yeah, and the second point on the Tatas.
No, reservations are not being taken off the table.
But when you privatize, that's what you're doing.
Are you suggesting that the government should own everything?
No, I'm not saying
or
that.
Or are you suggesting that there should be reservations in the private sector?
And if I say that, you guys are just going to lose it. So we're going to...
we won't lose it. We won't lose it. I'd like to understand the economic argument behind it.
Yes, he's very keen that the Tatas are probably the best thing that's happened to India. The Tatas are capitalists with a heart. But the two Gujarati lads who, today are given, I don't know about their social justice commitments, but I will never question the Tatas. What the Tatas have done for this country, if you saw Rocket Boys, which was a series, what the Tatas have done, the Tatas are an institution. See, I'm an upper class urban dweller. It's easy for me. Suhel, you've got me sold.
Who do you think goes to work for Reliance or for Adani?
Right, exactly. So who goes to work for Reliance or Adani? That's the question. So can I tell you in the media, Suhel, one point. When I go in the news media, you've heard of Oxfam, the British charity. Okay, you can say foreign this, that, Rana Ayub, I'm not interested. I'm just saying Oxfam did a objective survey. 125 managerial positions in the Indian media are held. 121 are upper caste. Sardesai, Goswami, Roy, same names, same castes. Where are the Dalit anchors? Where are the tribal anchors? Where are the tribal voices? Other than Dilip Mandal, who is written off as a loony on Twitter, there are no Dalit anchors. I asked Goswami this on the air. He said, oh, now what? Are you going to do a caste census of lawyers? Are you going to do a caste census of doctors? But boss, you're the media. You are the people we come to. Right? Today, Abhishek Sudhir is 35 years old and he's sitting here with eminent panelists because Abhishek Sudhir was born with a silver spoon. Abhishek Sudhir could go to the United Kingdom and become a barrister because he said, I want to be like Baba Saheb Ambedkar. I'm a barrister from the same Inn of Court. Owaisi Saab is also a very privileged person. Owaisi Saab is a barrister from Lincoln's Inn, the same inn as Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Right? Inner Temple. Right, in a temple.
I don't know if that was on purpose.
No, it wasn't. There's a portrait of, there's a portrait.
Ye dekhiye Waqar sahab.
And Gandhi and Nehru were barristers from Inner Temple. All very privileged people. We were all failed lawyers, failed barristers who said, chalo, let's do the next best thing.
Nehru was like Rahul Gandhi. He believed in it but never practiced it.
I think you're being uncharitable.
Nehru never practiced law.
Oh, he never practiced. He was a
I'm
failed.
talking about that only.
He was a failed lawyer.
Nehru never practiced law. Rahul Gandhi has never practiced politics.
He's not practiced much. Yeah.
So, एक सवाल था आपके
सर मैं एक मिनट, बहुत अच्छी बहस हो रही है सर, और माशाल्लाह से बहुत काबिल और बहुत ब्रिलियंट माइंड से यहाँ बैठे हैं. 75 साल आज़ादी के हम लोग मना रहे हैं. हमारे देश को मुबारक, आप सबको मुबारक. लेकिन अफसोस इस बात का है कि आज हम तरक्की की बातें कर रहे हैं, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ चुनाव से पहले लड़कियां हिजाब पहनेंगी या नहीं पहनेंगी, इस पर बहस हो रही है. हम क्या खाएंगे और क्या दूसरे को खाने देंगे, हम इस पर इलेक्शन लड़ते हैं. आपने भी एक बात कही थी कि 19 में रिपीट कैसे हुए. इस मुल्क में किसी को अपनी जाब की या अपने बच्चों की भविष्य की फिक्र नहीं है. इस मुल्क में एक मेंटालिटी डेवलप की गई है कि तुम्हारे पास कुछ हो ना हो, लेकिन तुम्हारे पड़ोसी का सब छीन लेंगे. इस बात पर चुनाव हो रहे हैं. इस बात पर जब तक हम चुनाव लड़ते रहेंगे तब तक हमको ऐसे ही बेवकूफ बनाया जाता रहेगा. उनको ये पता है कि इनको ना नौकरी चाहिए है, ना इनको इलाज चाहिए है, ना इनको अच्छी सड़कें चाहिए है, ना इनको अच्छा रहन सहन चाहिए है. इनको सिर्फ इतना बता दो कि जो एक बिगेस्ट माइनॉरिटी है देश की, उस पर जुल्म कितना कर सकते हैं. लोग इसमें खुश हैं कि जो अल्पसंख्यक हैं उनको दबाया जा रहा है, उनकी नागरिकता खत्म हो जाएगी, इसी में खुश हैं और इस पे चुनाव हो रहा है। मैं समझता हूं कि इस टेंडेंसी को, इस मानसिकता को बदलना चाहिए। हम सबको यूनाइट होकर देश के बारे में, मैं अभी तक के इसी टॉपिक पे बोल रहा हूं। हो सकता हूं मैं गलत बोल रहा हूं, हो सकता हूं मैं सही बोल रहा हूं, ये तो डिसाइड बाकी लोग करेंगे, देखने वाले करेंगे। लेकिन सच्चाई ये है कि आज जो सरकार है वो वक्त और हालात के हिसाब से मुद्दों को उठाती है। प्रधानमंत्री जी को चाहिए कि वो उन मामलों में दखल दें जो देश के खिलाफ हैं, जो देश की आवाम के खिलाफ हैं। और सुहेल भाई, मैं आपसे गुजारिश करूंगा, 2 लाइनें आपको इस पे बोलना चाहिए मेरे हिसाब से, कि क्या हमारे देश में क्या हिजाब पर चुनाव होना चाहिए, क्या CNRC पर चुनाव होना चाहिए। मैं कई बार चैनल्स पर ये मांग कर चुका, मैंने बकायदा अमित शाह साहब से कहा, गृह मंत्री बनने के बाद मैंने मोदी जी से कहा कि आप जो हिंदी भाषी प्रदेश हैं, चाहे वो उत्तर प्रदेश हो, राजस्थान हो, मध्य प्रदेश हो, बिहार हो, यहाँ के ऊपर तो आप कहते हो कि गाय का जो है वो नहीं काटा जाएगा और बिल्कुल नहीं काटने देंगे, वो माँ है। लेकिन वही भारतीय जनता पार्टी जब मणिपुर जाती है, जब त्रिपुरा जाती है, जब असम जाती है, तो वहां आप गाय के गोश्त को सस्ता करके बेचने पर चुनाव लड़ती है। आप साउथ में नहीं करना चाहते हैं। अगर आप गाय को मां मान रहे हैं और आप एक विधान, एक संविधान के एक झंडे की बात करते हैं, तो पूरे देश में लागू कीजिए। मैं आपके अर्थ पर भी बोल के जा रहा हूं कि गाय की लड़ाई तब तक नहीं थमेगी जब तक के आप गाय को राष्ट्रीय पशु नहीं घोषित करेंगे। जब आप राष्ट्रीय पशु घोषित कर देंगे तो गाय का अवैध खरीद, अवैध बिक्री, अवैध ले जाना, काटना, ये सब अवैध हो जाएगा और एक ऐसा लॉ बन जाएगा कि जिससे आदमी डरेगा। लेकिन आप नहीं करना चाहते हैं सर, क्योंकि जहां आपको गाय का गोश्त बेच के वोट मिल रहा है वहां आप बेच के ले रहे हो, जहां मां कह के वोट मिल रहा है वहां मां कह के ले रहे हो। ये सब नहीं चलने वाला भारत में अब सर। दूसरी बात, मैं, मैडम बैठी है, मैं नहीं बोलना चाह रहा था, हमारे देश में मैंने एक चैनल पर अभी हिजाब पे, मैं इसलिए जानबूझ के ला रहा हूं कि आप लोग बोले काबिल लोग हैं, आपको सुनेगा देश, आप जैसों को ही सुनेगा। हम लोग पॉलिटिकल विंग में आ जाते हैं। मैं आपके चैनल पर बोल रहा हूं, अर्थ पे बोल रहा हूं, मैंने बाकी जगह बोला है कि लोगों को डिसाइड करने दीजिए कि हमारी बच्चियां क्या पहनेंगी। अब हमारे देश की एक ऐसी अभिनेत्री कि जिसके माँ बाप उसकी तस्वीरें देखकर खुद शर्मा जाते होंगे, वो हिजाब पे बोल रही है, अफगानिस्तान पाकिस्तान कर रही है। नहीं मैडम, मैं आपसे गुजारिश कर रहा हूं, आप लोग को सोचना होगा कि मैंने लोगों के सामने सवाल किया सर, मैंने सवाल किया कि अगर आपके सामने 2 ऑप्शन रखे जाएं, मैं उन हिंदू बच्चों की बात भी कर रहा हूं जो वहां स्कूलों में हिजाब पहने हुए बच्चों का विरोध कर रहे थे, हिजाब पहने बच्चों का विरोध कर रहे थे। मैं उन बच्चों से कह रहा हूं कर्नाटक के,
वकार साहब,
उडुपी
वकार साहब, आपकी मैंने बात
सर
सुन
एक
ली
लाइन
है।
नहीं, एक लाइन बोल दूं उसके बाद काट दीजिएगा, आप ऑडिट
जरूर,
कर दीजिएगा,
जरूर, जरूर।
एडिट कर दीजिएगा इसमें से। मैंने कहा कि मैं
लाइव है साहब।
अच्छा, मैंने उन बच्चों से पूछा कि अगर उन बच्चों को 2 ऑप्शन दिए जाएं कि उनकी बहनें उस अभिनेत्री की तरह कपड़े पहनेंगी या उस हिजाब वाली जो सर ढक के बच्ची आ रही उसकी तरह से, तो क्या पसंद करेंगे। तो एक बच्चे का फोन आया, सर मुझे,
सॉरी वकार
मैं
साहब,
बताऊं
वकार
आपसे,
साहब ये इशू नहीं है, अभी मेरे को आपको रोकना पड़ेगा। नहीं, मुझे रोकना पड़ेगा। नहीं, आई एम सॉरी, आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू वेट इनटू दिस, शेफाली, नॉट एट ऑल।
Nikhil, I want to make a broader point, not about this
I'll
hijab
come
thing.
to you, but I want to raise a question for Professor Giri. He's been waiting patiently. Professor Giri, I wanted to bring some statistics on this issue of the vacuum of the political opposition, just on the larger issue of how does an opposition actually come to form and be politically effective, right? So let's take 2014. There were a number of state elections that happened before the 2014 general elections. The BJP won them all, and we were told the wisdom is that on the momentum of those state elections, they went and swept the 2014 general election. In 2019, it was the reverse. They lost a number of states. In 2017, they had a tight election in Gujarat. When you look at the vote shares in those specific states, only 6 months later in the general election, in Rajasthan, Congress gets 39 to 40% seats in the state election. The BJP takes 57% votes in the general election. In Madhya Pradesh, they take 54% votes in the general election. And in Chhattisgarh, which was their weakest state, they still take 51% votes. So what is the dynamic that comes into play here? And my larger question then is, with these numbers and the way they tend to shift, is it very difficult to actually create an effective opposition?
Yes, I would certainly answer that. But again, another fundamental question about democracy, because both Suhel and I think Abhishek, they raised about consensus in the democracy. You know, that's very important, whether we can build consensus and whether we can have national icons. We have national icons now, I think 3 or 4, our army, our cricket, our yoga, and our culture. These are national icons. But in a diverse country like ours, it is not the consensus that we should desire. We should talk about pluralism, and we should talk about dialogue between people and deliberations people. That is what Suez was saying, that in polarization culture, this is not happening. I'll just tell you very emotive quotation about democracy. That is by Elvin British Hall. You know, people attribute to Voltaire, but she said, I might disagree with what you say. I might disagree with what you say, but I will defend to my last breath your right to say so. That is the spirit of democracy. Now, your question, how do you build an opposition? You see, if you see in 1980s, this is a coalition politics, which Vajpayee started, and Congress came later. You see, so BJP also is a coalition even now. NDA, UPA. Before that, we have United Front, National Front, and all that. So this is coalition politics, and you know, you are talking about BJP becoming a big party, but it has not reached the kind of you know, majority that even Congress had. Congress had the biggest majority in 1984, 412 seats. Where was the opposition then, when Rajiv Gandhi swept to power? So to answer your question, what is happening now is that the UPA was built around a Congress party, and the Congress has a leadership vacuum, you know, the leadership crisis. You see, that is the major problem. So if you do not have a big party to connect the smaller parties into a coalition, that is where the problem is with the opposition. So if Congress party resolves the leadership question, or UPA accepts a non-Congress leader, opposition will spring up. You know, opposition, the people need an opposition. Indian electorate is I'll tell you, despite less of education, I have studied other countries, I had an opportunity to go to several countries. You know, the Indian electorate is the most conscious electorate in the world. I can bet you it. Most conscious. Our turnout is the highest in any democracy. And our political verdict, the electoral verdict is always political. So they are desperately waiting an opposition, but our politicians are letting them down. That is the problem. It is mainly the Congress party, and the Congress party does not resolve their leadership issue or does not accept like she was saying, non-Gandhi, you know, non-Indira Gandhi, we should say. Always, when we talk about Gandhi, we should use the prefix Indira Gandhi. They will confuse Mahatma Gandhi. So, non-Gandhi family member, then you have resolved the opposition crisis.
Anand,
Nikhil, I've been
Shefali,
waiting.
just one second. He's been quiet for very long. I'll come to you next.
I've also been waiting and been quiet for a long time.
Go ahead.
You talked about how the state elections and the central elections that followed in 2019 showed a very different point of view. But that is because, as Professor Giri says, our electorate knows exactly what it wants. So people vote for different things when they're voting for a state election, and they vote for different things when they vote for a central election. And that is true. And we saw that very beautifully last time in 2019 in Odisha, where the state and central election took place on the same day, same EVMs, everything. But the voter very clearly said that I want the BJD to rule in my state, but for the center, I overwhelmingly want BJP for whatever reasons. So our voters are always conscious, and our voters are, as somebody said before me, are the best opposition, best judge of everything. And they know what they want. But the greater point here is, we have seen that the BJP has reached close to 40, or little more than or less than percentage of votes, right? So if the opposition unites, the arithmetic says that they should be able to put up a strong spirited fight to the BJP, right? That's what the math says. So why is that not happening? Why is there not a consensus for a national opposition? That is because the egos of the regional satraps, they are in direct combat with the egos of the people who are leading the Congress party. So that is why Mamata Banerjee is trying her best to pitch herself as a possible prime ministerial candidate in 2024, which is why she's fighting in Goa. Why do you think she's fighting in Goa? She's not going to win in Goa. She's fighting in Goa because she is cutting the votes of the Congress. This is a signal to the Congress saying that I can damage you here. I can damage you in a small state like Goa. Do you know what I can do to you on a central stage? That is the key problem here. And as he very rightly pointed out, even I would be happy if there is a strong national opposition emerges, even though I'm a vocal and loud supporter of the BJP. But we do need one national opposition party, national political opposition party, and I'm very careful about using my words. But it has to be a national political party which keeps the interests of the nation above everything.
Or it
not
could be
the
a
nation
coalition,
of,
as Dr. Giri said.
yeah, but which keeps the national interests above everything and not the interest of West Bengal or Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra or whatever.
I think eventually to win a national election, you'll have to have that logic and that policy. Anand, I wanted to come to you because this nicely sort of segues into one thing that there might slowly be consensus, that great word, in this, on this dais. Is the Congress the biggest hindrance to a national opposition?
No, but by the way, before I say that, I don't mean to sound disrespectful or patronizing, but I think I'm getting a bit bored. I think that the debate has completely veered off the topic. The topic was about opposition and the need for it. और मैं बार बार इसी मुद्दे पे आना चाहता हूँ. पहले तो माय गुड फ्रेंड अभिषेक ने जो कहा रिजर्वेशन की बात करी, वेल रिजर्वेशंस आर हियर टू स्टे. In fact, Modi, if at all, is going to increase it. He has increased it across board. I mean, no politician or political party will dare remove any reservation from now. But the point of the matter is, if Abhishek says, has he condemned the Supreme Court for not having reservations in judges? Has he condemned the Indian cricket team for not having reservations? So
He did in the context of journalism.
in journalism, he wants it, but what about
Supreme Court should have reservations.
Okay.
The Indian cricket team, the South African team has quotas. Today, Kagiso Rabada is one of their best players, so I'm happy for quotas in the cricket.
Look,
so I'm not a hypocrite. So whatever you, principally,
no,
I will
it wasn't
agree.
against you. So yes, Abhishek, you know me, right? What I'm trying to say is, and even you said you were a bit circumspect or anxious when he asked you, do you want reservations in private sector? You said, यहाँ पे all hell will break loose. I would support you for that. Hell क्या है यार? जो देश के लिए इशू है, अगर आप मॉरल उस पे जा रहे हो, अगर आपकी एक मॉरल आर्ग्यूमेंट है रिजर्वेशंस के लिए, तो why should you exclude private sector? But here where I, तो वही. Now second point. इस पे मैं बार बार आता हूँ. इस पे मैं वकार साहब पॉलिटिशियन है और बहुत अच्छे पॉलिटिशियन हैं. मैंने इनको फांसा, ये वो उसको जो है वो नेट को खुचर करके बाहर निकल गए. मेरा पॉइंट ये है कि देश हित की अगर बात आती है तो let us not leave it to the opposition parties. Let us not leave it to what Modi is saying, yes or no. You should have the certitude and the gumption to stick with it. There are some issues that go beyond politics, and farm issues was one. अब मैं उस पर बार बार नहीं जाना चाहता, लेकिन मैं आपको ये बता दूं कि फार्मर्स ने ही ये कहा है कि पिछले 16 साल में हमें 31 लाख करोड़ का नुकसान हुआ है फ्रॉम फॉल्टी एमएसपी इवैल्यूएशन. ये मेरा वो नहीं है वकार साहब, ये फार्मर्स कह रहे हैं. आपको पता और फार्मर्स क्या कह रहे हैं कि 33 मिलियन हमारा बफर रिक्वायरमेंट है राइस का स्टोर करने का एफसीआई में, अभी 102 मिलियन टन है. क्यों? क्योंकि सरकार की हिम्मत नहीं कि फार्मर से कहे कि हम एमएसपी पे आपको नहीं देंगे, राइस लेते जा रहे हैं, चूहे खाते जा रहे हैं. ये पॉलिटिशियंस करते हैं. और आपने जो कहा पॉलिटिकल पार्टी डेमोक्रेसी देखिए सबसे ज्यादा है. किसी ने गिरी साहब ने बात करी थी कांग्रेस की राजीव गांधी के टाइम में 404. दैट काइंड ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी इज ऑल्सो वेरी हार्मफुल बिकॉज राजीव गांधी हैड अ फ्री रन. सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा देश हित में है, शाह बानो की जजमेंट थी, आप यूसीसी लाइए. They overturned Supreme Court. Why? Because they wanted a vote bank. अब आम आदमी पार्टी है, they had 67 out of 70 seats. जो बाकी 3 बीजेपी के थे वो मोपेड पे है. इनफैक्ट अंदाज अपना में 3 बीजेपी के एमएलए मोपेड वाला मीम भी है. Is that good for democracy? So that is why I come back to it. Let us not leave it to the politicians. As Jay Sai said yesterday, let us not leave it for the government patronage to remove this kind of decolonization. It has to come from the people. So logical, rational change in the way you look at policies has to come from bottom up. It cannot come from top down. Politicians will always fail us because they want to win elections. They will always fail us. People will never fail us.
There's a question we have from the audience, and I'd like to place it to all of you. Anybody can jump in. How bad is political vacuum for democracy?
There is no democracy if there's a political vacuum in the opposition. The point of a democracy is opposition.
So just taking off on this, because I think we can elaborate a bit on this.
Yeah.
Are you seeing, because you are with the Samajwadi Party.
Yes.
Are you seeing...
I mean, no, not officially.
Okay.
I support Akhilesh.
Okay. Okay, are you
Anand has been trying to trap me for months on this.
are you seeing any kind of movement here?
Yeah.
Where there is a more elaborate front that comes up as an opposition front as an electoral front. I'm now talking about not just a policy opposition, but as an electoral front.
Yeah.
Where the centrality of one national political party will be downplayed.
Yeah.
And then you have a more sort of a oligarchical system from which eventually you will pick a prime minister.
Yeah, well, the fundamental problem with Rahul Gandhi is I've been waiting for him to mature now for the last 18 years. I'm 35 years old and I had no doubt in my mind that someday I would be a Congress supporter. But that's done. I'm sorry, but dear liberals, if you're watching, Rahul Gandhi is not the answer. I think it's time you reconcile yourself to that fact because still Rahul Gandhi is around, Narendra Modi will be Prime Minister because the star pracharak of the BJP is Rahul Gandhi because you can't stand up in parliament and say India is not a nation. Basically, you cannot stand up in parliament and say India is not a nation and expect to get votes. Ashwini Kumar, who has been rewarded repeatedly by the family, has left the party saying, I was getting sleepless nights and I said, I'm so old, I might as well do something with my life. And he said, I can't take it anymore. So, dude, I'm from the Nehruvian staple. Like, I've read Discovery of India, autobiography, glimpses of world history. I'm all about Nehru.
You should read better books.
But, I mean, but that's what we were taught. I mean, that's what we were taught. We went to ICSE and ISC. I think Dr. Ranganathan was making this point about, what is that point you made about Ashoka being a Buddhist, something you said? That where we were taught that Ashoka was a Buddhist before Kalinga. Nehru taught me that through glimpses of world history. He was not? He was, okay, so the problem is thanks to Donald Trump, we can't agree on the facts. There's alternate facts also now. So,
Were you the one who wrote the NCRT books that we read?
No, I am from Orissa.
So, Mike.
Yeah.
After only the Kalinga War, he became a Buddhist.
That's
and
not
I
true.
do
Factually,
not
that is
think.
wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's not-
Dr. Giri, I just want to finish my point about the electoral front. You had a very powerful visual in Lucknow, and you want to have a very powerful visual in Banaras on March 3rd, when Mamta Didi is going to come and campaign for Mr. Yadav. Today, Mr. Yadav is giving Mamta Banerjee a stage in Uttar Pradesh saying, come campaign for me. That's a massive statement. You see, we have to evolve. This isn't going to be another I.K. Gujral Devegowda. Today, the funny thing is, Narendra Modi still defines himself right, with respect to the Congress, and the opposition defines themselves with respect to Narendra Modi. This is the problem. Narendra Modi, if he wins a third term, dude, you're like, you're on par with Nehru now, right? But he still defines himself.
Is that giving you sleepless nights?
Of course it does. Of course it does. I have 2 TV shows to do after this, and I've done 2 TV shows before.
Okay, I'm going to come to Suhel because I think Suhel's understood the question that
I just want to take off from where he left. Modi spends far too much time being contextualized to Rahul Gandhi. He is giving Rahul Gandhi more importance than Rahul Gandhi either deserves or is capable of.
He's deliberately doing
Fair.
It's tactical.
Fair. To answer the Ashwani Kumar question, and this is a sad display of defection or whatever you call it, most of these jokers get Rajya Sabha withdrawals. They get the Rajya Sabha withdrawal symptom. They want to get back to Rajya Sabha, they will find a way, they will sell their soul, their ideology, whoever they need to. But that is the tragedy. So, when I made the earlier point about nation first, which by the way, even Modi spoke about in 2014, the nation is no longer first. And what we are seeing is, it's the individual first, willing to destroy ideology and the party to accept them because there is nowhere else to go.
30 seconds, because it's, no, you see.
Once you say 30 seconds, I'm sold.
Thank you. No, I say it jocularly, मैं science की तरफ से हूँ. Science में पहली चीज़ क्या सिखाते हैं? Please do not repeat failed experiments. एक बात मैं बताना भूल गया, जो अभिषेक ने बहुत अच्छी बात कही, Suhel also commented it about socialism. Now, I am for a welfare state, and it is a requirement because it is in the benefit of a capitalist to have his or her workforce healthy, educated. It is in India's interest to have a good welfare state, but please understand, Sudhir, do not repeat failed experiments. The only way socialism can work is through a capitalist system. You have to earn money through capitalism to be able to then
Can you define socialism for me? Because the varying definitions of socialism.
Okay, how much time have you got?
I mean, give me a quick definition.
It's something which is controlled by the state, which is owned by the state, and which purports to distribute equally, which
Fact
never
is the
happened. In fact,
production owned by the state.
Ambedkar had a choice of including the word socialism,
Socialist, yes.
and he refused to do it.
Yes.
If we go into the reasons, I mean, that
Yes.
itself
Yeah.
makes us applaud
There's a very
Ambedkar.
simple reason. There was Minnu Masani in the Constituent Assembly. He basically said, let's not decide for future generations whether they want to be socialists or capitalists. We have to evolve. Today, are we really saying, I mean, look, Anand, we are all born socialists, and then you grow up and you realize, actually, man, socialism doesn't work. But, you know, when you have that realizing that socialism doesn't work, you're already a capitalist because you've essentially got to that stage in life where you don't have to worry about roti, kapda, makan. Today, a country like India needs socialism. Am I going to say, are we going to thrive as an outright capitalist nation? Perhaps, perhaps not, we don't know, but free market capitalism cannot work in a country of 3 billion people. See, the problem is we have a labor force that says, because of the caste you're born in, you're always a manual scavenger or you're always going to clean a bathroom. The only way to uplift them is reservation. The only way to uplift them is reservation. And how do you implement reservation? If you're open to reservation in the private sector, we don't need state-controlled governments. We don't need state-controlled undertakings. Let's have private sector reservation free for all. There we go.
So, without taking the names of any companies, there are companies that have done tremendous work where they've used mining, and I'm not talking about the illegal mining bit, where they've included a lot of inclusivity for tribals. A lot of that has happened. My only question is, every country is poor and rich. You know what India's problem is? The impoverishment of opportunity. What Waqar Saab said. अगर आप लोगों को वो opportunities नहीं दोगे जिस हिसाब से वो equal हो सकें, तो आप कभी equal society नहीं बनोगे. So I think, Sudhir, with due respect, I think the question that needs to be asked is, are we willing to become a more equal society? There is no perfect society. There is no perfect equality. And the answer is yes. But to castigate one group or to play one, the other thing that worries me about the BJP and the Congress is, I have never seen someone make dead people fight. Today, dead people are being made to fight. So, that's another interesting evolution of our Indian political landscape. Oh, Nehru hated Patel. No, Patel hated Nehru. No, actually, Bose hated Nehru. Yeah,
the most pointless debates.
But they're not pointless.
No.
We were so, starved of the correct version of history.
No, but the domain should be amongst the historians, right? This is part of the problem. Yeah. We bring it in the domain of politics. Professor Giri, I wanted to ask you a question. The default setting for Indian politics was the Congress at the time of independence. It took a solid 30-year period for an opposition coalition to emerge. And it dissipated for a bit, and then once it returned, from 1984 onwards, from their epic mandate that you spoke of, they have never come even close to a full majority for themselves. So there were certain issues that crept up. One was reservation. The other was the Ram Mandir, and so therefore secularism. On these two issues, Congress somehow didn't quite grab the pulse of the nation, and from there it slid downwards. Are we into 2024 looking at a whitewash election again? And then maybe a movement starts? Or are we now starting to look at certain issues that you can identify which might be similar for the BJP, where they don't grab the pulse of the nation and the vote starts to swing in the other direction?
Well, right. That was the watershed for opposition, and after that, non-Congress party, and they dissipated. But after that also there were three non-Congress prime ministers, if you remember, BP Singh, Deve Gowda and Gujral, all that. But to answer your question, we are... Chandrasekhar for a few months, yes. That's right. So...
Charan Singh?
No, Charan Singh before 84. You see, so... the two questions I wanted to, 2 points I wanted to raise. One is one is certainly about socialism. I want to say something. But, we are focused on personalities now. We are talking of Rahul Gandhi, whether he is a prime minister material or not. We are not talking of principle. The principle of uniting
so
the
that was exactly my question.
Yeah.
The way we went from a personality such as the Gandhi name
right, yep.
to two sets of principles that beat them because they couldn't quite comprehend how to deal with the politics arising from them, to no-name politicians, to another larger political group now.
No.
Are we in those kind of stages? Are we in our 1984 moment, or are we in 1980 right now?
We are not in 1984 moment, but 1980 moment, I can tell you. But I was going to make that point that, once you put the principle, then it is easy to elect a leader. I've written about 5 articles, but no politician reads our articles. Anyway, so you see, they don't have time to read.
Don't restrict yourself to only politicians.
I know.
Not reading.
Anyway, so if you put the principle, then it is easier to create a political process. Now, the other point about socialism, just that I am a social democrat and I am a part of a group where there are 110 countries, 120 political parties which are social democratic parties. So there are different versions of socialism which you are talking about. That is an old conventional socialism. I am talking of social democracy where private sector, public sector coexist. Anyway, that is all. Because I am associated with it, so I wanted to react to it. Finally, to your point, Moderator Saab, is that whether there would be new. Yes, now BJP has the agenda. BJP dictates the agenda and opposition have no agenda really. That is the problem. They are not coming up with new ideas. They are caught in secularism, old-time socialism, old-time, Hindu-Muslim minorities, that kind of a debate. So they are not coming with the fresh ideas. Any idea that is coming really is coming from BJP, whether you like it or not. Unless opposition comes with a fresh agenda, new ideas, and secularism for me is dead. It's a dead concept. And BJP really took advantage of that muddled concept of secularism that Nehru brought in and Congress practiced. BJP took full advantage. Secularism is not workable. I have been arguing it. What we want is that we have to bury it fathomless deep and we talk of pluralism. You see, and his concern, Khan's problem of hijab, etc., will be answered only through a new system. You see,
right.
It is not allowing Muslim appeasement or minority appeasement, which Congress did. So this is a new concept of pluralism, and the 7 principle of solidarity based on pluralism.
Professor, 2 things.
Yeah.
One,
Anand, I'm very sorry. I'll come to you. Shefali, can I pose the same question to you? Let me phrase it again. Are we at a stage where maybe the BJP hasn't felt the pulse of the nation on a couple of issues that might be uniting? Because as you said, there is invigoration in as you call the regional satraps. And Abhishek points out they are seeking a unification. Are we in that sort of stage where we're going to see another front coming up?
I don't think so. As a political analyst, I could be wrong. I think that there are attempts to forge opposition sort of coalition, but the Congress is the biggest monkey wrench in the wheel here, because they are never going to let go of the Gandhi family leadership or trying to position only either Rahul Gandhi or Priyanka Gandhi or whoever as the prime ministerial candidate, and that is the primary problem. But the thing is, as Professor Giri pointed out, the politics in this country, the Overton window has permanently shifted towards the Hindu side. It is no longer that muddled secularism. That is why even your regional political parties are all doing Durga Puja and taking, like even Kejriwal is taking people to Ram Mandir Yatras and whatever. So everybody is doing that. So that it's like there are no new ideas. It's like, okay, the BJP has positioned itself as a party for the Hindus. So all the others, including the Congress, that's why Rahul Gandhi keeps going to temples. That's why Priyanka Gandhi keeps going to Prayag and does a Ganga Dubki. These are all optics that they're trying, but they're playing the game with BJP's rules, right?
Playing the game.
But they're playing the game with somebody else's rules. It's somebody else's game. And you are saying that I'm playing
You
this
can't
better
come
than
and
you.
take this credit now.
Yeah.
Can I just respond to that?
No, not just to respond. I wanted to pose the same question to you, Abhishek, because you obviously have more insight on this issue.
Yeah.
Is there something afoot? Have they identified something that in terms of the pulse of the nation, the BJP has missed?
Shefali is absolutely right, and I want to congratulate her and the party. They have actually, she's right. They have changed the rules of the game. Sorry, you're a supporter. You're a...
She's exactly like you.
Exactly like me. Okay.
Identified but not quite entered yet.
Right. So the BJP has changed the rules of the game. Right. They've basically said, yes, I don't think there was ever a time, like in my family, I can tell you I'm the black sheep. Everyone in my family has donated to build the Ram Mandir. And they flaunt it in my face every day, every time I go as a joke. It's not that I'm opposed to the building of the Mandir. I'm opposed to destroying another place of worship to build that Mandir. That's my fundamental opposition. So yes, they have changed the rules of the game. You are seeing the rise of a right-wing sort of intellectual class today, right? Some of voices you see and you hear today, you couldn't hear them even 10 years ago on television. I mean, Suhel has seen it all. I mean, he's been on television for 15 years. He has seen the pivots that so many anchors who are once secular and liberal have made today, go without naming any of them. So, yes, the rules of the game have been changed. Now, are we trying to rewrite the rules of the game? That's the question. Can we rewrite the rules of the game, or are we going to continue to play the game, you know, the way they've said?
No, I've asked you exactly, like, is something afoot? I've
Yes,
asked you
I mean,
exactly that
Prashant
question.
Kishore. Let's come to Prashant Kishore. For me, I have never met the man. I have watched him in the media. I think far too much is made today of people like Prashant Kishore.
Psephologists, essentially.
He's not a psephologist. I'll let him take this one. And
You know, I
Be
hate
mindful
this-
of the time. I'm going to
Yeah,
come
very,
to
very
everybody for
quickly-
their final comments.
Very
and
30
then-
quickly,
seconds after
I'm not,
Suhel, yeah.
you know, tooting my horn.
yeah.
I did Vajpayee's campaign, hum ab bhi atal hain. I did Sheila Dikshit's campaign. Prashant Kishore has an army of researchers who apparently do a great job. They like get into actual poll
Yes.
booth analytics, blah, blah, blah. But he's not the strategist that he's made out to be.
Correct.
If he was, he wouldn't have got it so horribly wrong.
Correct.
And continuously switched both parties and ideologies. But the jury's out. His best friend Pawan Verma has told me, and then he's also said it publicly, that wait till April. And Prashant Kishore will show us something that we haven't seen.
See the yeah.
April 1 is known for two things. It's the CBI Foundation Day. It's CBI's Foundation Day. It's also April
That's not
Fool's Day.
coincidental, is it?
I don't think so.
I just want to take off from what Suhel said quickly, and these are my final comments. Okay, we have more time. Okay.
No,
yeah.
If you could, because I'll start with the final comments with you. Waqar साहब, इसके बाद आपके पास आऊँगा, पहले
Okay.
इनकी बात
Shall I
सुनूँ.
see to him?
No,
or-
please
Yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead. Please go ahead.
So the problem is, I think there are certain false prophets who tell you that data will win you elections. Yes, they do a fantastic job on data. But why is it that he is not fighting the Uttar Pradesh battle? That is the question I have. If any election needs to be won by the opposition, it's the Uttar Pradesh election, right? If the opposition, and there's only one party fighting, it's the Samajwadi Party, and that we all know, and there's been a common consensus.
Two parties. The BJP is there as well.
Oh yeah, of course. Sorry. Yeah. In my world, just the one. So it's a bipolar fight. It's a bipolar contest, right? This is the final. All right, for 2024, because dislodging Modi dislodging Yogi/Modi, I mean, Yogi makes Narendra Modi look like a liberal tree-hugging snowflake. So, you know, I'm happy to take Narendra Modi 5 more years.
वकार साहब सवाल ये पूछा गया है कि आज के दिन में, आज के दौर में कुछ ऐसा चल रहा है कि ऑपोजिशन पार्टी सारी जुड़ सकती हैं, एक फ्रंट बना सकती हैं, कुछ मुद्दे अपने चुन सकती हैं जिन पे वो मोदी साहब के खिलाफ लड़ सकती हैं.
बहुत अदब के साथ हो सकता हो मेरी बात आप लोग समझ जाएं. एक डॉक्टर का काम डॉक्टर ही कर सकता, वो इंजीनियर का इंजीनियर. मैंने शुरू में एक बात कही थी कि जो मरज पहचान लेगा दवा वही देगा. आज़ादी के बाद से लेकर और जब तक कांग्रेस की सरकार रही तब तक का जो तरीका था वो ये था कि केंद्र में अकेली पार्टी, स्टेट में छोटी छोटी पार्टी. 77 में एक नेशनल ऑप्शन आया, 77 में एक नेशनल ऑप्शन आया जनता पार्टी, लेकिन कांग्रेस ने वही गेम खेला कि उन्होंने फिर उसको टुकड़ों में बांटा और स्टेट में उसको जाके फिट कर दिया. फिर एक ऑप्शन आया 89 में, दैट वाज जनता दल. जनता दल को कांग्रेस ने फिर खत्म किया और उनके लीडर्स को अलग अलग प्रधानमंत्री बनाए. तुम बन जाओ, तुम बन जाओ. उन्होंने अंदर की जो जिज्ञासा होती है ना बनने की, एक लालसा, उसको कैश कराया, फिर तोड़ दिया. इस सीधी सीधी लड़ाई में भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने वो गेम प्लान पकड़ लिया. जो कांग्रेस कर रही थी वही बीजेपी ने किया. बीजेपी ने अपने को लार्जेस्ट अकेली पार्टी नेशनल में दिखाया और उसने धीरे धीरे कांग्रेस के नक्शे कदम पे चलते चलते स्टेट को अलग अलग पार्टियों में जो छोटी छोटी पार्टियां थी उनको डेवलप कर दिया. एक बात शुरू में इन्होंने कही थी भाई साहब ने कि कांग्रेस मुक्त भारत का नारा देते देते कांग्रेस युक्त हो गए. समझिए, आप इस लड़ाई को समझिए. आज एक रंगनाथन भाई बैठे हैं, सुहेल भाई बैठे हैं. मैंने शुरू में जो बात कही थी मैं फिर वही बात कह रहा हूं कि हम लोग सब इसी चमन के फूल हैं. एक शेर है कि चमन में इख्तलाते रंगो बू से बात बनती है. हम ही हम हैं तो क्या हम हैं, तुम ही तुम हो तो क्या तुम हो. हमारे विचार अलग हो सकते हैं, हमारी लड़ाई अलग हो सकती है, लेकिन हमारी मंजिल सबकी एक है. हमारी मंजिल भारत की तरक्की है और हमारा जो एम है, हमको उस एम को अपने सामने रख के आगे बढ़ना है. एक साहब से मेरी बात हो रही थी तो मैंने उनसे कहा आप वैज्ञानिक हैं और आपने जिंदगी के 30 साल लगा के एक रॉकेट बनाया और वो पहुंचा चांद तक, अब आपको मंगल जाना है, तो आपको अपना रॉकेट बदलना होगा, उसको बढ़ाना होगा, उसकी क्षमता बढ़ानी होगी, उसमें ईंधन की पावर बढ़ाना होगी, उसकी इंजन की क्षमता बढ़ाना होगी। इसके लिए जो आपने ब्रेन इस्तेमाल करना था वो कर लिया। अब या तो आप कोई बेहतरीन अपने से ताकतवर और अपने से अक्लमंद वैज्ञानिक लाएं, तब वो बड़ा रॉकेट बना सकता है, या उसको थोड़ा सा क्षमता बढ़ाने वाला आदमी लाएं, वो आप करना नहीं चाहते। हम सब की प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हम सब अपनी अकल के आगे दूसरे को आगे नहीं आने देते। लेकिन मैं फिर गुजारिश कर रहा हूं, बहुत अच्छा प्लेटफॉर्म है, बहुत अच्छी आप यहां डिस्कशन लेके आए हैं। हमारी लड़ाई एक है और वो लड़ाई है भारत को नंबर 1 बनाने की, दुनिया के नक्शे पर।
वकार साहब थोड़ा जल्दी।
दुनिया के नक्शे पर, खत्म कर रहा हूं सर, अब तो चाह रहा हूं।
20 seconds on the Congress.
दुनिया के नक्शे पर हमको नंबर 1 बनना है, तो उसके लिए हमको बीजेपी भी चाहिए है, कांग्रेस भी चाहिए है, एमआईएम भी चाहिए है, सपा भी चाहिए, टीएमसी भी चाहिए, शरद पवार भी चाहिए, साउथ की जो पार्टियां अन्ना वाली हैं वो भी चाहिए।
बिल्कुल सर।
हम किसी को अलग करके सर तरक्की नहीं कर
फाइनल
सकते।
कमेंट्स?
All I want to say is that politics follows a cyclical pattern, right? So from one central party, it went to coalition, it went to another central party. Could be that the future is again coalition and again another party. Time will tell. I mean, none of us can see into the future. But I have a feeling that at least for one more term, there is not going to be a viable national opposition party, and that is going to help the BJP to come to power. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not wrong. That's my personal thing, but that is what is my read of the situation. Maybe after that things could change. I don't know. Things will change because nothing remains permanent anyway. But when that will change, it's another story.
Right.
The topic of today's discussion is there a political vacuum in India? Yes, there is a vacuum of a national political opposition in India.
So just before I come to 20 seconds, you said.
20 seconds, absolutely. The Congress is coming around. They realize today that they are not the grand old party
This
anymore.
is a very interesting point to make. So
And this is my observation. Today I've been on 3 major media networks. I'm going to be on 2 more. The Congress spokespersons, I've seen an attitude change. They are speaking in support of the Samajwadi Party, basically. The SP spokespersons are not going on TV. So the Congress is coming around. They realize that they have to be part of a larger group, that Rahul Gandhi cannot be the general. That much is clear.
20 seconds.
Done.
So, vote for the Republican Party in the next US election, because I've never seen one political party or two being plugged. But having said that, 2 quick comments. 2 quick comments. Number 1, India, for all its faith in soothsayers, has never predicted a future prime minister other than Jawaharlal Nehru. So the jury's out. Number 2, as far as I'm concerned, Modi's ambassador version 3.0. The difference between him and the others is he's made the horn work.
Yeah, very quickly. प्रोफेसर गिरी से मैं डिसएग्री करता हूं कि सेकुलरिज्म हमें प्लूरल होना पड़ेगा। हम ऑलरेडी प्लूरल हैं, हम सेकुलर कभी थे नहीं, क्योंकि एक ऐसा सेकुलरिज्म है जो सिर्फ हिंदू टेम्पल्स को गवर्नमेंट कंट्रोल करती है और बिलियंस लेती है, वो अलग बात है। नंबर 2, वकार साहब ने जो बात कही कि कांग्रेस मुक्त भारत करते करते ये कांग्रेस युक्त बीजेपी हो गए, विद ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट, और ये लाइटर वेन में वकार साहब, as I've said, the only person in this country who is never homeless is a politician. कल को आपके घर पे CBI रेड पड़ेगी, आप भी बीजेपी में आ जाएंगे तो बीजेपी भी AIMIM युक्त हो जाएगी। नंबर 3, आइडियाज की बात है, और यहाँ पे ऑपोजिशन सबसे जरूरी है। ये
रंगनाथन जी, आपका शुक्रिया कि आपने इतने बड़े प्लेटफॉर्म पे ये माना कि बीजेपी CBI का इस्तेमाल कर रही है।
मैं तो बिल्कुल मानता हूँ ये, बिल्कुल मानता हूँ ये। पर एनीवे, नंबर 3, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट बात है। इसमें शेफाली ने जो कहा एकदम नब इश्यू है। उन्होंने कहा कि द रूल्स ऑफ द गेम आर बीइंग डिसाइडेड बाय मोदी एंड द ऑपोजिशन इज फॉलिंग फॉर इट। एब्सोल्युटली ट्रू। मैंने आपको 12 चीजें ऐसी निकल गिना सकता हूं जो कि कांग्रेस और ऑपोजिशन के आइडियाज थे जो कि मोदी ने पूरे किए। ये कहने के बजाय ये कहने के कि ये हमारा आइडिया मोदी ने पूरा किया है, ये अपने आइडिया से ही पलट गए। They could have easily said CA is a brilliant idea, it was our idea, Modi has fulfilled it. Farm laws were a brilliant idea, our idea, Modi has fulfilled it. But they didn't. They are scared of Modi. Number 2, प्रोफेसर साहब, ऐसी बात नहीं कि ऑपोजिशन के पास आइडियाज नहीं है, वो डरे हुए हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल न्याय, Nyaya was an idea that Rahul got in 2019 and
Anand,
Modi was
very
so
quickly,
scared.
very quickly.
Modi was so scared that he had his own version of Nyaya Kisan ka, this thing. He was so scared of it. It has been 4 years. What was stopping Congress from implementing Nyaya in Congress ruled states?
Yes.
So ideas are there. They are just powerless to implement them.
Only once, and I end with a new theory. And I'm more worried about BJP than Congress. The theory is parties do not win elections, parties can lose elections. BJP should not do something where they lose the elections. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed that. That was very informative for me and very entertaining per se.